One.
Good afternoon. It is 5:30 p.m. The regular meeting by video conference during disaster due to COVID-19 of the Board of Trustees of San Elizario I.S.D. held this November 18, 2020 is now called to order. Mr. Madrid, roll call, please.
Madam President, let the record show all board members are present.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And now we will proceed with the script to start our meeting. On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by a telephone call and internet access. We are meeting by use of both telephone conference call, online access, and through use of an email link for questions. If a member of the public submitted written comments in advance, the board president or a member of the administration will read the comments into record before or during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practical. And an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties as we ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. If you have questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at tona@oag.texas.gov. Okay, if we may please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Proceeding on to item D, San Elizario I.S.D. mission statement. San Elizario I.S.D. mission is to graduate students with skills to meet the demands of a changing world by promoting student success as non-negotiable, channeling resources to match the learning needs of students, employ and retain quality staff so that San Elizario is a proud, innovative, and academically superior district. Item 2, open forum. Mr. Horacio, do we have anybody signed up for open forum?
Ma'am, Nicole, let the record show that there's no request for open forum.
Thank you, sir. We will now move on to item 3, district recognitions. 3A, teacher and employee of the month for San Elizario High School. Presenter, Ms. April Marioni, principal. Welcome, Ms. Marioni.
Thank you. Good evening, President Licon, Dr. Mesa Chavez, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity of allowing us to present our Teacher of the Month and our Employee of the Month. I'm going to ask my colleagues to help me with this. Mr. Parra, go ahead and introduce our Employee of the Month.
Yes, ma'am. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. So let me start off by saying good evening to Board President Lincoln, Dr. Mesa Chavez, and the Board of Trustees. It's with great privilege that I present to you guys our Employee of the Month. Our Employee of the Month actually started at the district working at GEMS as a custodian. He became head custodian at Alarcon Elementary, and now he's our head custodian at SEISD. As you all know, we have a lot of programs and events that happen at the high school, so it's quite the job. He's very efficient at doing the job. He's makes sure that all our classrooms are clean, ready for our students to go on our staff. And he makes sure that everything is up to par as far as the guidelines with CDC and keeping our kids safe. And with that, I'd like to present to you guys our employee of the month, Mr. Luis Hernandez.
Buenas tardes, Board President Ms. Licón, Superintendente Dr. Mesa Chávez, and Broadcast Board Trustees. Gracias por esta oportunidad, por ser el empleado del mes de la high school. Me siento orgulloso y contento de pertenecer a este gran equipo de San Elizario High School. Gracias a todos.
Felicidades.
Felicidades, Mr. Hernández, y qué orgullo para nosotros de tenerlo en nuestro distrito y como usted trabaja y representa a nuestros niños y nuestra comunidad. Felicidades de todo corazón.
Gracias.
And Ms. Gaddis, if you would go ahead and introduce our teacher of the month.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, Board President Licón, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Mesa Chavez. This evening, I have the honor of presenting our Teacher of the Month. Although he is not a stranger to this stage, he was our high school Teacher of the Year a couple of years ago. Mr. Avila currently teaches our dual credit and our Algebra 1 courses. He does an amazing job engaging our highest learners, as well as those who math might not be their forte. He is a perfectionist when it comes to delivering lessons because he wants nothing but the best for his students. Mr. Avila's focus has always been student achievement, and we are extremely lucky to have him. So board members, I present to you our Teacher of the Month, Mr. Avila.
Thank you, Ms. Baez. I really appreciate that. Let me go ahead and thank our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mesa Chavez, Board President Sandra Licón, and all of our trustees. Being selected a Teacher of the Month, it's an amazing award, especially during this unprecedented time. I would like to thank the leadership team of San Elizario High School under the direction of Ms. Marioni for selecting me. I am certain that there were numerous teachers that you could have selected, and I am deeply humbled that you selected me amongst them. Every teacher quickly understands that teaching is a team effort, and this school year is no exception. So I would like to thank everyone that has helped me with this virtual learning. This is something that I was never used to or comfortable. I am a traditionalist, paper, pencil for math, and getting out of my comfort zone was the hardest thing ever. And it has really opened my eyes of the possibilities that are out there. So one moment at a time. And that's my philosophy as of right now. So I'd like to thank everyone for this award, and I appreciate everything. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Mr. Avila.
Congratulations.
Very excited and proud of you since you aren't new to this stage, but you keep serving our students and align yourself with the teachers with such a humble heart, and that humble heart is reflected. You know, when you hear the students speak of you, they sing your praises. So thank you. We're very honored to have you in our district. And again, congratulations on your being selected once more. Good job.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Avila. Well deserved.
If that concludes our Teacher Employee of the Month for San Elizario High School, we will now proceed to item 3B, focus on student outcome goals. 3B1, San Elizario High School, monitoring student progress. Presenter is April Marioni, principal, and this begins on page 8 of our board book.
Thank you. Once again, good evening, President Licón, Dr. Mesa Chavez, and members of the board. This evening, I'm going to show you some information just to keep us updated on what's happening at San Elizario High School. Next slide, please. Our mission and vision is, our mission is to motivate students to believe in themselves and instill the confidence necessary in them to reach their post-secondary goals. The vision statement, San Elizario High School will prepare students to enter a four-year university or college of their choice by becoming a cutting-edge learning institution focused on advanced academics and college readiness. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, thank you. This year, the students did not have data when we started the year as far as last year's assessments because of the COVID shutdown. And so we tested students at the beginning of the year with a beginning of year assessment being the assessment they were going to take at the end of last year. So this data is reflective of the test that should have been taken by these students last year, but it was taken at the beginning of the year so that we can get an idea of where students are. And as you can see the data, it does show some gaps. And so what we did is identify 2 areas in the areas of math, 2 skills in the areas of reading, and that's what I'm going to review right now. The focus skills for math will be, students will focus on reinforcing foundational skills in solving, writing, and graphing linear equations. Students will focus on reinforcing foundational skills in deriving slopes and determining equations. And you can see here that our students that were to take the grade 8 mathematics last year took it at the beginning of the year, a total of 159 students. And the percentage score was 47.52. And the students who were to have taken the Algebra 1 assessment took it, and the average score was a 56.41%. And as you can see, there were some gaps, and those have been identified, and those were the 2 skills that, under the direction of our instructional specialist, Mr. Peña, were chosen to focus on. Next slide. Some interventions in place for our math is we have an end-of-course math lab that is taught by our Coach Maese. We had intersession the first week. We had tutoring sessions. We have had Saturday schools. We have 1 more Saturday school on December 5th. And of course, on Fridays, we have tutoring. We have both on-campus tutoring from 8 to 2, and then we have virtual tutoring up through 4 o'clock. Next slide. In reading, we also chose 2 skills that we're going to focus on from the gaps that were identified from the assessments given at the beginning of the year. And those will be to analyze the relevance, quality, and credibility of evidence given to support or oppose an argument for a specific audience. Students will focus on making complex inferences about text and use textual evidence to support understanding. And you can see that they took not only the 8th grade reading, but we also gave the English 1 and the English 2. This does not include all the retesters because some of them were out. They did take a makeup, but that is not included in this data here. Next slide. Some interventions that we have in place for reading are we have the college prep English class, and that's taught by Ms. Patricia Gonzalez. And that is for students who have not been successful on the TSI, and they are helped. And if they finish the course with the 75%, then they're given the eligibility as if they had scored what they needed to on the TSI. We also offered intersession the first week sessions. Then we've also had Saturday school. We've had the Friday tutoring. And then we're also encouraging read alouds across the electives, not just in the English classes, but all our elective teachers were once again trained on Talk, Read, Talk, Write so that they can include those read alouds during their classes. Next slide. College career military readiness at San Elizario High School. There's always something going on, and that has been very new to me and to us here at the that came from GEMS. But we've had FAFSA Fridays to where students and families are encouraged to come into our library and they can be guided through the FAFSA process because it does get sometimes complex. And we open up the library. We have all the safety procedures in place so that they can come in and be helped with that. We've also had the parent night with Early College High School to give them some information in advance of setting out the applications. We've had dual credit parent meetings under the direction of Ms. Julieta Rojas. She does a very good job with those. She's met with the Gear Up Kickoff Committee and with the 9th grade students. And then as you can see there on the other side of the slide, we have some future events still scheduled that have not been held yet, but are already in the plannings. Next slide. Next slide. Right there. Okay, so our attendance rate as of September 30th, we're at 82.21%, which is very low across the board. I mean, for high school in the past, that's a very low attendance rate. We've had several interventions in place to help with that. We've had teams of people who make phone calls. We've had a small group of people who make home visits. We've revisited lesson plans to where students can go back and adapt those lessons and have them turned in by 11:59 p.m. because the state of Texas has allowed us that option. Students who may have trouble connecting during the class, they still have that option to show engagement and progress until 11:59 p.m. And then we've also replaced a lot of devices. We had students who had checked out devices last year and they were kind of run down. And so we've also had that as an option to help encourage students to log in without having any problems. Next slide. One of the issues that we are dealing with at the high school right now is we have numerous students who over the years have accumulated hours for attendance, and therefore they have lost credit for several courses. You can see on the table that we had approximately 216 students who had lost credit due to loss of hours. With all the interventions that we've put in place as far as Google Classrooms, Study Island, tutoring, Saturday school, intercession, there are still 156 students with loss of credit due to attendance. Some of the things that we will continue to do is the Google Classroom lessons, and Mr. Peña and Ms. Morales, the instructional specialists, create those. Study Island, those are online lessons that students can take at their own pace. And then, of course, we will continue to have Saturday schools on Saturdays where students can recover those hours. Next slide. Walkthroughs. Up through October the 23rd, the teachers, the administrators visit classrooms, and we provide the teachers with some feedback on Eduphoria. And sometimes we do follow up with them for conferences. Next slide.
Hello? Hello?
Presentation is taking place, Mrs. Romero. We just can't hear the music on our end.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry we weren't able to play the music. At this time, that's all the presentation that I have. I'll take any questions that you may have for us at this time.
I have a question, Ms. Marioni, regarding the Saturday school. Is the Saturday school available for all students, or does the teacher have to sign them up for Saturday school?
The Saturday school is open for all students. We have the links now. Not all teachers help during Saturday school. We only have a select few number of teachers. And so during the week, they're told, if you want to join in, this is going to be the link, this is going to be the link. And then we send them the links if they're interested. However, if they, like by Friday night, if they haven't shown an interest, they won't have a way of logging in on Saturday. And we do that for safety reasons.
Okay.
But it is open to all students. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions. Thank you, Ms. Marioni. Thank you very much for the
Ma'am,
presentation.
thank you.
So wonderful to see the kids' faces. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. With that said, we will now proceed to item 4, new business, board action items. We will begin with item 4A1, since it is a presentation, and then we'll go back to item 4A for the memorandum of understanding. So for item 4A1, San Elizario Early College High School PowerPoint presentation. Presenter will be Dr. Rogelio Segovia, Associate Superintendent, and Ms. Tony Vadillo, Dean of Early College and Dual Credit. This presentation begins on page 33 in our board book. Ms. Vadillo and Dr. Segovia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, President Licon, board members, and Dr. Mr. Chavez. It's exciting times here in the district. And today we'll have a joint presentation from El Paso Community College and San Elizario I.S.D. It is my honor to present to you, she'll get us started, Dean Badillo. She is the Dean of Dual Credit and Early College High School.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Segovia. Good evening, Dr. Mr. Chavez, President Licon, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to address you on behalf of El Paso Community College. Horacio, can we have the next slide, please? Since 1999, El Paso Community College has provided the youth of our region with the opportunity to earn college credit while in high school through our dual credit program. We serve public, charter, and private schools in the region. Next slide, please. Today, close to a third of our enrollment is high school students, almost half of whom are enrolled in an early college high school. 72% of our early college high school students earn an associate's degree before high school graduation. Next slide, please. EPCC embraced the Texas Early College High School Initiative in 2005 and opened our first early college high school in 2006. We currently have a total of 20 early college high schools in partnership with 7 school districts. 17 of them are early college high schools and 3 are Pathways in Technology Early College High Schools, or PTECs. Next slide, please. Today, we are pleased to ask for your approval to partner with us for number 21, San Elizario Early College High School. We're hoping to recruit up to 60 students in the initial cohort that will start classes in fall 2021. This early college high school will be connected to our Mission Del Paso campus. Dean Joshua Villalobos will be the administrative liaison, but will receive support from my office as well. The leadership team, comprised of members from both institutions, have been laying the groundwork for this successful partnership. Dr. Segovia.
Thank you, Dean Badillo. It's exciting news. Here, what we're presenting to you is a tweet from our superintendent when we got the notice from TEA that we could have a planning year this year. And so that's what we've been engaged in. The work is to get the early college high school going. And we do have a quote for Dr. Mesa Chavez, so we're going to be number 21 in 2021. Next slide, please. There are some benchmarks we have to meet as we prepare this school year, and then we have to sustain. We do have a total of 6 benchmarks. Benchmark number 1 deals with target population. And here we need to ensure that the early college high school is inclusive of any student, regardless of background, that can participate. So we open it to all students, and we're particularly interested in those who might otherwise not go to college, right? So we want to make sure that we get those kiddos to come in. Some of the students that we're targeting, even though it's open to everyone, is students who are economically disadvantaged, English learners, students with disabilities, African Americans, Hispanics, and males. Those are the criteria that we'll be looking at year after year. Benchmark 2 deals with our partnership. And for example, today, this presentation that you have before you, and later on after this presentation, well, hopefully you'll approve the memorandum of understanding is part of the process that we're going through. So we do have a strong memorandum of understanding with EPCC so that we make sure that we have all the components that are needed to open our school. Next slide, please. Benchmark 3 deals with our pre-K to or P16 leadership initiative. And here's where we establish the partnership, right? So we do have a leadership advisory committee that has been meeting. It's been personnel from San Elizario I.S.D. and personnel from El Paso Community College. So for example, we meet every Monday to go over the different products that we need to create and have ready and to strategize to be able to open. Dean Badillo is one of our members. Dean Villalobos is one of our members. We also have our principal, Ms. Marioni, our assistant principal, Ms. Payares. So Dr. Mesa Chavez is included. So we all have a unique opportunity to contribute to the opening of our school through the leadership team. Benchmark 4 actually gets to what, and I'm going to steal a phrase from Rene Chavez, who's also part of our team. He's a counselor coordinator from EPCC, and he says everything begins here, right? It's a crosswalk that we have to develop. That's the engine under the hood, is what he called it. And I thought that was a good analogy, and so I'll steal it from him today. And so he and Ms. Sanchez, Sandra Sanchez, got together, developed this crosswalk, presented it to committee, and then we kind of vetted it. We all looked at it to make sure that it had all the guidelines. And so the crosswalk, what this does is aligns our high school courses to courses at the college level at EPCC, where students can earn dual credit. Here also in this benchmark, we also have a calendar of events that we're planning on. We do have our PLC rubric that we're going to follow as we meet with our instructors. And we also have our master schedule, a sampling of our master schedule here. Next slide. And as you know, the early college high school does come with academic rigor. And so students, while this is not going to be a criteria, the TSI, passing the TSIA 2 is not a criteria to enroll and to apply. They do have to pass this exam, both the reading and writing and math, to be able to earn that dual credit, to be able to enroll those dual credit classes. So here we have a calendar, testing calendar, and we also are building support systems so that we ensure that students that are interested are successful as they take these exams. The last benchmark, benchmark 6, here we're talking about professional development for our instructors, right? So we need to make sure that not only do we provide the professional development that is needed for high school instruction, but we also are looking at what professional development opportunities does EPCC have for them to join and learn that world as instructors. So actually, Dr. Mesa Chavez and I met, I believe yesterday, today, I don't know the days mentioned, we kind of looked at that catalog and kind of decided these are good opportunities that we could start with. And so that's the benchmark number 6. Next slide. Here is the EPCC and SEISD partnership. you'll see that it includes every stakeholder. From here is where we pull the Leadership Advisory Committee. Basically, everybody in San Elizario I.S.D. is part of the leadership team. We're going to keep it like that for a while because we want to make sure we get it right. And then we do get supports, extreme support and great support from Dean Barrio, Dean Villalobos, Mr. Chavez, Ms. Marshall, who is going to be the counselor assigned to help us with our students here from EPCC, and also Ms. Maria Casares, who is also very involved and provides a lot of feedback. So next slide, please. The San Elizario Early College High School did develop a mission, a vision, so we need to make sure we have a purpose, right? That's why we have our mission, and we need to have some direction, so that's our vision, right, where we're headed. And so the mission for San Elizario Early College High School is, San Elizario Early College High School will ensure an equal opportunity for students to excel in their academic goals by promoting a rigorous curriculum that leads to an associate's degree while earning a high school diploma. And the vision is to ignite self-confidence and a passion for learning that will empower students to obtain their post-secondary goals, right? So we want to make sure that our kids have this opportunity, this great opportunity. Next slide. Here, this year is the planning year. So we've been doing a lot of the grunt work to get the school to open. We are expecting a successful an affirmative from TA once we submit the application, the designation application here soon. So we could open the early college high school to the next school year, 2021. Our first cohort will be our incoming freshmen, and we are targeting 60 students. We want to start with 60 students, and they will be graduating 2025. So it'll be our first graduating class. Next slide, please. We do have our admissions policy. And here again, I'm not going to read the whole policy to you, but just a couple of highlights. We need to make sure that we open it to all students who are interested, but we especially focus on students that the state considers at risk. They're at risk of possibly not finishing high school. So, and these are students that traditionally don't want to or continue, right? They don't continue into higher ed. So we want to make sure that we do have that population. Actually, we are required to have students in this population. We're not going to base our decision making of enrollment or admittance based on our admitting students based on the STAR test or STAR scores or discipline history or teacher recommendation or anything that might create a barrier for a student who is wanting to enroll. We're going to give the students the opportunity, and then we're going to provide every support possible to ensure that they are successful as they navigate through 4 years worth of both high school curriculum and higher ed courses. Next slide. Here we want to show you a sample of the, well, actually, this is the application. This is a website that we're going to have here soon. We're going to launch it here soon. It's not finalized yet, but we want to show you the application that the students are going to have to fill out. It is a very simple application. It starts with the admissions policy, which is exactly what I explained. It is the same verbiage that I had in the other slide. And then after that, obviously, we need to have demographics from students, right? So we need to make sure that we have the student's name, their first name, last name, their student ID. Of course, we need to have their birthday. Student email, that's critical. It is mandatory. That's the way to communicate. And of course, the cell phone, so we could contact them. This next one is gender. Of course, students will let us know. We're particularly interested, and I know this is something that Dr. Mr. Chavez and I talked about. We're particularly interested in males and our boys joining, but we also want to make sure that our girls don't fall behind. So, but we need to have a good representation of our boys. We also need to have the parent information, their address, a way to contact them via phone or email. It's important that they have their email. That's a critical way to communicate with them. And then we also are asking the students to give us who their counselor is. If it's our middle school, we know who the counselors are. But if we have a transfer student coming from a different district, we want to make sure we have that information. So in case we need to contact the counselor, we can. So we're requesting that. Then after that, we have some demographic information from our students to see, what opportunities their parents have had. So that information is there. And then a personal inventory. We want to know a little bit about our students as they're coming in. Just a couple of questions that we asked. They could check all the ones they feel they meet. Say they're creative, friendly, they feel misunderstood. This gives us a good opportunity to kind of gauge who we have and begin to strategize supports for them. If we keep going, then we do have two essays that we'll be reviewing and requesting that the students submit. They are short. They're not very long, 200 words. 200 to 300 words per essay. The first question that we'll be asking is, what are your academic strengths and weaknesses, right? That's the first one we'll be reviewing. And the second question is, an early college high school combines both high school and college courses. Why do you think you are ready to handle this type of educational experience and atmosphere? What benefits will you receive by attending an early college high school? This is a big commitment, a big commitment from the students. So we want to make sure we have their ideas and their thinking behind, or do they understand what they're getting themselves into? And if they don't, then we can clarify and still provide the support for them. So, and then we do ask them, are they enrolled here or not? And then they would go to the next page. If we press next.
Dr. Segura, I would have to fill that out to go to the next page.
Okay. So the next page continues with, it's actually, I believe that the next page is just the signatures for both student and parent, and then they submit. That is what happens after that. I know because I actually practiced, so I don't know if Horacio or Perla got my sample application. So that's where it takes you. It takes you to sign. Your parents have to sign, and the student has to sign. And just to let you know, my mom did sign yes, so I'm going to be a new enrollee at the early college. Next slide, please, or let's go into back to the PowerPoint. Next slide. Okay, this is the crosswalk that I spoke about earlier. One of the benchmarks that is required that we have this. This is a 4-year view of what the student is going to be required. It's sort of like a what is it, a degree plan? And so if you look, we do have the 4 years. The first grade area is the freshman year. There they'll have an opportunity to accumulate 6 college credits. In addition, they accumulate their high school credits, right? They would accumulate 8 high school credits. And then the next year is the sophomore year. There again, they're going to accumulate, if I'm reading this correctly, the 12 credits, an additional 12 credits, and then we continue to accumulate courses. If you notice, if you go to the next slide, Horacio, it'll give us a sample of the freshmen coming in. This is the way their schedule is going to look. If you look at the left-hand side, that's the high school curriculum. That's the high school courses. Notice that there are 2 opportunities that align to college coursework. And so that'll be the learning framework, which is Education 1300, and also professional communications, which is Speech 1321. So those students will be taking those courses, and if they're successful, and we want to make sure that they are successful, they will accumulate their 6 hours towards their 60 college credit hours, and also hopefully to earn that associate. So that's kind of how that works. So the student will be able to follow how they're doing, and then that's how we advise the student as they progress. Next slide, please. This is the good news for the parents. These are estimated costs, right? So if you look, and again, these are estimated. If you look, an associate's degree costs are a little bit under $7,000 to finish, which is a 2-year degree. And then if you add to that the lab cost or the textbooks, that's about $2,200. That's a total of almost $10,000, right? $9,206. That's the estimated savings for a parent. So that's real good news for a parent, right? So we wanted to make sure we did inform you of that. Next slide. At this point, it concludes the presentation, but we'll take any questions you may have.
Ms. Licon, President Licon, this is Trustee Garcia. I would like to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, the floor, please.
I'll ask them all together, Mr. Segovia. Okay, so my first question is on the essays for the applications. I know you're saying you want to target students that are underprivileged and that need the extra help. Will they have support to fill out those essays?
Yes, actually, we were talking about opening our labs in case they don't have access. Well, they should have access at home, but if they don't or they have problems, we will be opening our labs. And I believe I spoke to Ms. Marioni about this so that we could provide the additional assistance they may need.
Okay, and then you have a admittance of 60 students, right? But I know that there could be other students from other districts applying. Will our students get first priority?
Well, yes, ma'am. They will get first priority, and again, we're flexible with the 60. That's our minimum. That's our target. But we could go. I believe we could go up to, what was it? 120 per cohort, something like that. That's in the MOU, and so we have enough space for our kids.
Okay, and then my next question is for Ms. Badillo. Ms. Badillo, what's the success rate on the graduates for their associates? Are we the only districts focusing on our underprivileged and our children that most need it, or is that done across the board?
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. It is actually across the board, and it is a requirement by the Texas Education Agency for designation, right? So that's why they have those requirements for the blueprint. Perhaps if I may give you a little history, right? So when we first started the early colleges, there seemed to be this idea that was for, the cream of the crop students, right? But TEA has really tightened the benchmarks and what we call it the outcomes-based measures to ensure that it is really the students who need it the most, because the early college requires that additional support for students. So we're really lucky because we have been building through the years a very strong support for these kind of students. And we're very proud of that 72%. 72% of our students graduate with an associate's before high school graduation. Some of them a few weeks before, some of them 1 semester before, some of them 1 year before. We're not pushing them to graduate early, but we don't want to get in their way either. And so again, we are so excited. Dr. Mesa Chavez and I have been talking about early college for quite a while. In fact, the district many years ago considered an early college, but it didn't come through at the time. So this is the perfect time. This is a perfect team. You have a fantastic team in your district. So we're very excited about this.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm excited for the program. My oldest son graduated with, I believe, 40 credits, and he went into college straight into his bachelor's. So I know how much this is going to help our community and our students. Congratulations, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Thank you.
Ms. Licon, I don't have any more questions.
I was waiting for next one, Corazon. No, that's fine. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Comment.
Go ahead, Fernie.
I just want to say that this was long overdue. So I'm glad we're hopefully going with this. And a question that I do have is, in a scenario where the student decides to go to a different college, are those hours going to be able to be transferred to that campus?
If I understand correctly, if I may address your question, the courses that students earn, the credit that students earn through El Paso Community College were accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, Commission on Colleges, and these courses are transferred throughout the state, for sure, right? So they're by law transferred across the state of Texas, but also we have transferability and articulation agreements with many universities across the nation. And so we work very closely with our friends at UTEP because 86% of our students transfer to UTEP after EPCC. So we have very, very close relationship with them to make sure that those credits transfer easily. And if I may, you know, El Paso Community College, as it is, has very reasonable tuition rates. So the number that Dr. Segovia quoted as savings for the families, that is EPCC tuition. But those credits could be earned at UTEP, for example, and that would be 3 times as much money, right, in terms of savings for families. So again, I hope that that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Dr. Segovia, this is Mr. Chavez.
Hi.
How you doing, sir? Just real quick question on, I know we were trying to target the freshman kids coming in, but let's just say sophomore or junior wants to do some of the courses. Are they going to be offered that, or is that not an option with the MOU?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. Yes, they may take a dual credit course. However, they're not part of the cohort, as I understand it. They're not part of the cohort that's working towards the associate degree, but they may take a dual credit course because we do offer them. We offer them now.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This is Mrs. Hernandez. Dr. Segovia, you mentioned about transfer students and how we would need to request their records from the previous campus. Does it have to be another early college for them to transfer, or would they be able to transfer mid-year? Would that pose a problem?
I think we would, well, the students that are applying now are freshmen, so they're coming from a middle school, right? So they'll be brand new to our cohort, and we get them started. Now, for a student who is transferring in that's already in an early college, I would assume, I haven't asked that question yet, but just in making logic on this, I would assume that we treat it just like a regular transfer from another district. We look at how many college courses they've already accumulated, where they are, what high school credits they still need, and then catch them up if we need to catch them up, or if they're right where they need to be, we continue. And that's what I would assume, unless we have something different in value. But that's a very good question.
This happens not very frequently, by the way, that we have transfers from one early college to another, but it does happen once in a while. So each school evaluates the transfers from that student coming in and also identifies the fit, right, for that cohort. The beauty of an early college is a small learning community, so the students become a very tight cohort where they support each other, and so there's this idea of trying to support that atmosphere for the students as well. Just to address also Mr. Chavez's question, San Elizario has been doing a fantastic job at building up dual credit opportunities for students already. So they already have the opportunity to earn up to 42 credit hours, which is the core curriculum. And by law, that is what we can offer to a comprehensive high school. So regardless of whether the students are an early college high school student or a traditional high school student, they do have the opportunity to earn college credit.
Any further questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
I am very excited for this early college. Thank you, students. I am very, very excited for this college. We had been waiting for quite a while, hearing our students wanting to have the early college, and just to see it now unfold, I'm very, very excited. And you're absolutely right. A great team. It took a great team all over, from community as well as San Elizario to get this going. So thank you all. Okay, if there are no further questions, then may we go back to item. Thank you, Ms. Padilla and Dr. Segovia. If we may go back to item 4A, and this will be our discussion and possible board action to approve an MOU between El Paso Community College District and San Elizario Independent School District for the purpose of development and support of the San Elizario Early College High School. Presenter Dr. Jeannie Mesa Chavez Superintendent Dr. Rogelio, Associate Superintendent, and Tony Vadillo, Dean of Early College and Dual Credit. I just love reading that. I'm sorry, just love reading San Elizario Early College High School. So you all have the floor, and this begins on page 20 in our board book.
So, Board of Trustees, it is with great pleasure that we bring the MOU before you after having the presentation. We have had our legal counsel, and Ms. Legal Counsel De Mata is on the line. She has reviewed our MOU with EPCC. You all have had the opportunity to review it. Unless you have specific questions that we can address on the MOU, I just would like to confirm that it's been reviewed on our end, and it's before you so that we can create yet another opportunity for San Elizario early college high school students in our community.
Do any of you have any questions on the MOU?
Dr. Mesa, one quick one, Ms. Licon. One quick one.
Yes.
As far as the transportation on the MOU, the classes are going to be offered on campus, right? So what would be the purpose of them having to go to EPCC?
So at one point, and Dean Badio can probably, through the experience of 20 prior, at one point our campuses do engage on being on campus. And so Dean Badio, can you address that from your end in experience?
Of course, I'd be more than happy to. So we have worked with Ms. Marioni, of course, and her faculty. So we have a significant number of teachers who are credentialed by El Paso Community College to offer college courses for dual credit at the high school. But those are a limited number of courses, and we want to give San Elizario Early College High School students the opportunity to pursue the pathway that they wish. So we may have students pursuing biological sciences, some may be pursuing engineering, some may be pursuing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the most common degrees, psychology, criminal justice, right? And so we cannot, and we don't want to, right, to have a whole college experience at the high school. So we want them, typically the junior and senior year, they will come to our campus, and that's why they're connected to the Mission El Paso campus, and they will actually be able to have our largest array of courses available to them so that they can pursue the associate's degree of their choice. So transportation to the college campus and from the college campus.
So it would be, the transportation would take place from the high school to the campus, not picking up anybody, you know, going to other districts to pick up any students, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That was all, Ms. Licon.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No? If not, may I please entertain a motion?
I so move.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Garcia, seconded by Ms. Hernandez. This is to accept the MOU between El Paso Community College District and San Elizario Independent School District for the purpose of development and support of the San Elizario High School College. Can you tell? I just love reading that. On the vote, Mr. Madrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
And Mrs. Licon? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited. I'm also wanting to share that this MOU is also on our board agenda for December 1st. So I should have also very good news after that. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to present before you. And have a rest of your meeting and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Badio. Thank you very much. And we're excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will now proceed with item 4B. Consider an approval of the annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. This is the separate workbook that was handed to us. And the presenters will be, Mr. Norberto Rivas, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Board President Licon. Good evening, Board President Licon, Board Trustees, and Dr. Mesa Chavez. It's that time of the year to go over the year and the audit that just ended for this fiscal year in June 30th. As mentioned by Board President Licon, there's a separate book that went out with the board book. There's 3 items in there. The actual bound copy is the actual audit itself, and then there is a management letter which contains management points, and then there is another document with the graphs for the presentation. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Ms. Shelley Ruddick and Mr. Mario Arenas of the audit firm Gibson Ruddick Patterson, so they can present the results of the audit.
Good evening. Thank you all very much for having us tonight. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, before we kind of go into the presentation, I wanted to thank Mr. Rivas and Mr. Jaquez. They were the main people we dealt with the audit this year in the finance department. And even though it was a different year and harder to do, they did an excellent job. And so I wanted to thank them for all their hard work and getting this done on time, and they didn't miss a beat. So I want to say all that at the beginning and just thank them again for all their hard work. And now I'll go into more detail here. I wasn't going to go over in your booklet, I wasn't going to go over any particular things in there because we have highlights to the graph, but one of the very important pages that everybody wants to look at would be page 120, but I can just read it to you. And it just says there are no current year findings or question costs. So again, another year with no findings. So I wanted to congratulate you on that and read that first of all. This next thing I wanted to go over with you, if it was okay, is the graphs. And do you want me to do screen share for that?
Yes.
Okay, I've never done that on here, so we'll see if I do it right. And can you see them?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Ms. Rudock, if you can press the share button and then share your screen, so that way everybody can see your screen.
I did hit the share button.
Ms. Shelley and Sanelli, we've learned to say we haven't learned how to do that yet, or we haven't done that yet.
Oh, okay. We haven't done that yet. Well, I haven't done that yet either, but I'm pushing the share button and it is. Did that work?
No.
We all have our copy though.
Okay. If you're content with it doing that, I can move on, or if you want me, I can try one more time if you wanted to.
Does everyone have their copy? Yes.
Horacio, do you want to try to give me access to share?
I'll share now. Okay, you good?
Okay. Can everybody see it now?
Oh. Copy.
That's coming up.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, the next page will be the first one we'll go over. Okay, and this is a comparison of your school district revenue for the last 5 years. And so I wanted to highlight some changes between 2019 and 2020. You'll see the blue section is the state revenue, and you'll see there was a slight increase in that. And although you did have less, your ADA was down, the basic allotment was higher in 2020, so there was an increase in that. And then the available school funds, there was a decrease in that, but when that decreased, the foundation money increased. So you pretty much stayed the same as the prior year, although there were some changes within the details of that. You'll notice in the yellow section, that is your federal money that you receive, and there was a decrease in that, and that's mainly due to your food service program with the school closing down and doing the virtual learning starting in March. Part of your year was impacted by that, and even though they continued to serve the students, there was less participation, and so there was a decrease there. The red represents your local money, and you'll see that there was a decrease in that. And there's 3 main things in that area. The first thing being you did lower your property tax rate, and so you would have less because of that. Then the food service, part of the food service is sales to the teachers and then just catering, and all that was decreased because of the shutdown. And then there was also less investment earnings during 2020 because your funds from the construction had, although there was still some left, they had been mainly spent, and so the earnings on that were less. So overall, a slight decrease in revenue from 44.3 million to 43.9. The next slide is just gives you that same information in a percentage. So it just tells you 77% of your revenue is from the state, 14% from federal, and 7% from the local. The next slide. This is our general fund expenditures, and you'll see at the top of the graph, I've got the totals. So it went down from 39.45 about to 38.69. Now, you all were carefully watching the expenditures to make sure that you came in under budget once you all went to virtual learning, and you'll see that on another graph too. But I'll give you some detail here. You'll see that instruction did increase, and that was mainly a result of the raises that you all gave for the 2020 school years, and then there were some increase in supplies. The instructional and school leadership, that's about the same. The next change in student support, you'll see a decrease there. That was related to a decrease in extracurricular activities, and then also food service. There was only they were only serving out of one cafeteria, and so you did have some cost savings there. When you look at the gray bar, that is your administration, and the decrease in there was related to 2 positions that were not filled. So there were savings between 19 and 20 on that. Your non-student services, the decrease there is mainly there were less maintenance and repair projects that were done in the general fund during 2020. Those are done as needed, and you can have projects going on. So there just wasn't as much going on in 2020. The last one is your debt service and capital outlay. That went down. At the end of 2019, one of your bonds was paid off, so you didn't have a bond payment in 2020. And then also there was really no capital outlay in the general fund because you all had savings in your capital projects. And so any projects that you wanted to do that were eligible for the capital project funds, you use those funds. So there was nothing that had to be spent out of the general fund. So the total expenditures there were 38.69 million, and your budget for those expenditures was 41.2 million. So you did come under budget there. The next graph is just a different way to look at this. Where does the money go for each dollar you get? And this shows you 53 cents goes to instruction. Instructional and school leadership is another 8 cents. Student support, administration, indirect, and then your debt and capital outlay. So it's kind of looking at it by percentages there. The next graph is when we look at our general fund, and this is showing how much is spent per pupil and then how much the state gives you. So you'll see there's a gap between what the state gives you and what you spend per pupil. And so that for this year was about 2,200, and that is what you have to make up in your local funds. So this shows you the difference between those two. Mario was going to talk on the next graph, so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. So I'll let Mario take over the next one, which is your ADA.
Yes, thank you, Shelley, and good evening, everybody. So the next graph that we have is your refined ADA, and it just shows you what it has been for the last 5 fiscal years. Refined ADA and enrollment, you could pretty much take in the same thing. I mean, that one affects the other. They affect each other significantly. So refined ADA for fiscal year 2020 was 2,859. Next slide, please. This is your general fund balance. So fund balance is a good indicator of the district's financial health. Is it improving or is it deteriorating? So you'll see that fund balance did have a slight decrease from last year, but that was because there was a loss in the fiscal year 2020, which Shelley covered in the previous slide. However, fund balance is at a healthy level, and what I mean by that is this is not a state law or a federal law or anything. It's just a good general rule. So the general rule is that you should have at least 3 months of expenditures in your fund balance, and you do. At the bottom of the graphs, you can see that there's 98 days of expenditures in your fund balance, and that has been consistent for the last 5 years. You've been pretty much on average at about 100 days, so the district has been doing a good job in managing fund balance. And obviously, as you can see with the legend there, the blue is your unassigned fund balance. So this is not restricted to anything. It's just, whatever it needs to be used. That's the majority of it, the 10.4 million. And then the other 0.4, the light red, your other that's related to your food service programs like inventories. Next slide, please. This graph shows you the activity for your health insurance. So the blue part is your revenue and the yellow is your expense. So you can see that for 2020, the revenues and expenses have been fairly consistent with not only 19, but also 2018. The health insurance fund did have a loss as of June 30, 2020. But in the year we're in, the district did a transfer of 1.5 million to make up that shortfall. And also to help in that, the district, both the employer contribution and employee premiums increase for the health plan rates effective September 1st, 2020. And the employer also began contributing towards a health savings account for those who opted to enroll in a high deductible plan. Next slide, please. And this is our last slide. This is pretty much the same thing, but this is for the workers' compensation fund. Again, your blue bar is your revenue and your yellow is your expense. You can see that revenue stayed the same, approximately the same as in last year, but where you'll see the most significant change is in the yellow, which is your expense. That decreased, and that had to do mainly with the pandemic because it, essentially shut down the district for that last quarter of the year. So there wasn't as many district personnel on site where, they were susceptible to an accident or getting hurt. So that was the most notable change in there. And unlike the health fund, the workers' compensation fund has been having an increase in that position, which is that red line that going on upward trend. And like I said, this is our last slide that we had. Is there any questions?
Mrs. Licon?
Yes. So there is no question. We need a motion to accept, or we need a motion for this item, for the annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
I so move.
Okay, motion by Ms.
second.
Garcia. Was that Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion on the floor by Ms. Garcia, a second by Ms. Romero. Mr. Madrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Licon? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now proceed to item 4C, Texas Association of School Boards, TASB Staffing Study Overview. Presenter, Ms. Blanca Cruz, Human Resources Director, and Ms. Cheryl Hoover, TASB Consultant. And this begins on page 52 of our board book.
Good evening, Board President Licon, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Dr. Mesa Chavez. It's good to see you all on these little screens. I guess it's been a long time. So as you recall, back in July, the Board of Trustees approved a contract for us to partner up with TASB and conduct a salary and a staffing study. So far, the staffing review has been completed, and it was done by Ms. Cheryl Hoover, who's with us today and will present a little bit later. So the salary study is still going on right now. It started just recently, about 2 weeks ago, so that will be presented at a later time. But for now, we do have Ms. Cheryl Hoover, who will be presenting the findings of the staffing review. So thank you, Ms. Cheryl, and go ahead and feel free to share your screen. You should have access to that.
Yes, I do. Thank you, and good evening, and thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and share screen. Hopefully that worked. Would you let me know, Blanca, if it did?
It sure did. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm used to Teams and Zoom and have not done WebEx, so this is the first time. So anyway, I'm Cheryl Hoover. I'm an HR consultant with TASB, Texas Association of School Boards. It's been a pleasure working with your district, Ms. Cruz and Dr. Mesa Chavez, and your principals and all your leaders of your team. I've got to meet and speak with and work with them, and what a great group, and so many great things going on in your district. Congratulations on all the wonderful things going on in your district. I'm a former principal and HR director, and now with TASB. So I always enjoy coming back to board meetings and coming back to districts and seeing all the great things. So thank you for having me. So we did conduct a staffing review. And basically the process in this is that we collected data, student enrollment data, staffing data, and it collected that from your principals and all of your supervisors, custodial, maintenance, food services, et cetera, as well as all the central office district leaders. And that was conducted in September and October. So just realize that these numbers are a snapshot and they continually change. Obviously, enrollment numbers continually change and staff numbers change also, but they were collected. We also chose peer districts that look like your district. I know you said you're also doing a salary review with us also. And a salary review, I know Luz Cardina is doing that. And in a salary review, Luz will pick districts around your area. That's important when you're looking at salaries because staff and employees can jump around very easily. It's different with a staffing review. We are looking and we picked peer districts that may or may not be close to you, but they're about the same size as your district and look like your district as far as the makeup of students, as far as economically disadvantaged students and that kind of thing. So you'll see the peer districts in the report. And then also we look at state averages, we look at other benchmarks. So basically we're comparing your district to a lot of different other areas, and we'll talk about those areas in a minute. And then we build models for improvement, aligning with the benchmarks and addressing your needs. So that basically is all called benchmarking, and it's an opportunity for your district to look at your staffing in a really different way. And me not being an employee, I can be very unemotional and not involved in who the people are in positions and those kinds of things. It's an outside looking in view of your staffing, and it really helps your district look at your staffing in a different way. Because as we know, many times staffing just happens, and this gives you an opportunity to look at your staffing and see why you do that. So why benchmark? Basically gives you a good look at yourself. It gives you a good look at what others are accomplishing with other districts, kind of see their averages of peer district average as well as state average. And then it helps prioritize your efforts. And as we all know, there's only so much money, as you just saw in the last presentation, in your budget. And somewhere the average, I guess for most districts, is somewhere around 80% of your budget goes to personnel costs. So if you're losing enrollment or you're wanting to move money to different areas, we know there's never enough money. So you have to look at efficiencies and where maybe you could make some changes to do some other things you wanted to do in your district. So basically what benchmarks were used, and I know the board and the district leadership, you have the staffing report. It can be confusing when you first read through it, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at that. But as you'll see, our benchmarks, we do compare you to other peer districts through PEAMS data, through TAPER data. We use our state averages. We use TASB. We have created staffing benchmarks for areas. One of those is, for example, assistant principal that we'll talk about. So we've created some best practices benchmarks that we have determined over the 30-some years that we've been doing staffing reviews. And then we also look at professional organizations. For example, when we compare custodial maintenance, we'll look at the Association of Personnel professional associations on those. So a lot of different benchmarks that we're using. So as you look through the report, you may say, well, at some point in the report, you said we were staffing higher, while another part we may be staffing lower. But again, remember, we're comparing you to several different benchmarks. And all of these recommendations, really the rationale for the recommendations, again, I don't work in your district and I don't know your district like your great district leaders do. They really are the only ones that will be able to choose if they want to implement any of these recommendations, and they'll know best which recommendations would work for your school district. So again, all of these recommendations, and that's what I'll go through, and that's really the last part of the report, the last couple pages. But the rationale for the recommendations are based on benchmarks and pure numbers that we're looking at. But again, the peer districts were chosen because they're districts that look like your district. So again, they're recommendations. Some may be able to be implemented and some may not. And I do want to say kudos to your district team. In talking with them, I know that they have done a lot of work already with staffing in the last year or two. So what are the summaries and the findings? First, looking at central office. Here you're going to see that the recommendation was to consider, and we'll always say consider. None of these are requirements. This is again me looking from the outside in, but consider possibly absorption of 2 planning and instruction, which is what your curriculum instruction department is, and possibly be able to consolidate some positions and absorb 2 of those professional positions. And the rationale behind that is San Elizario I.S.D., your district staff's 4.7 planning and instruction professional staff per 1,000 students compared to the peer districts of 2.9 staff per 1,000 students. So you'll see also in the report, we give sheer numbers, but we also compare apples to apples by breaking it down your number of staff compared to 1,000 students. So you can see that that's fairly high. We do understand and know it's always very difficult to reduce staff. It's much easier to add staff in any district. But we also recommend that any time that we are reducing or absorbing, that those things happen by attrition. So if vacancies occur, then maybe you possibly don't fill that vacancy or you combine job responsibilities, et cetera. But you do it in a way where no one's being terminated or let go. You find creative ways to do that. So that's the first recommendation. Library staff, this in the report, I recommend that you implement the alternate library staffing model. And if you do that, this model would absorb 1 librarian at Lorenzo G. Primary School. Because it has a projected enrollment of just 161 students. And you could redirect, there was only 1 campus that had a library aide, and that's your middle school, possibly redirecting that aide position to the primary campus. And then one of the elementary librarians could also oversee that library aide at the primary school. So again, another suggestion or recommendation. Clinic staff, consider implementing the alternate clinic staffing model, and in that it would absorb 3 clinic aides, 1 at the middle school, 1 at Borrego, and 1 at Zambrano. Each of your campuses should be commended. You're staffed with 1 registered nurse or 1 licensed vocational nurse to provide students with direct access to a school nurse. So we know that that's important always, and particularly now during the pandemic. Later, anytime you'll see paraprofessional positions or these kind of positions, these 3 positions are going to be included in the proposed educational aid staffing model. This model again keeps an LVN and 1 clinic aide at the high school because of those larger numbers. Clerical paraprofessional staff, again, just a reminder that in the report, you'll see what the benchmark suggestions are, or recommendations, and why this recommendation came in the rationale. So this recommendation is to consider redirecting 1 of the elementary campus clerical positions to the high school. They were short 1 position, and then absorb 1 elementary campus clerical position, again, through attrition. 2 of your elementary campuses are over the benchmark, and that benchmark is 4.5 campus clerical positions per 1,000 students. That's Alacarn and Borrego Elementary. And then, as I said, the high school is below the benchmark by 1 position. Non-campus support staff, and this is your non-campus clerical, particularly at central office, but also at the auxiliary positions. Consider absorption of 8 non-campus support positions through attrition. The benchmark is 4 positions per 1,000 students, which would put your recommended staffing at 12.5 or up close to 13. So you're staffed actually at 20. So at 8 actually should be 7 there. You could say 7.5, round up to 8, or we'll just say 7. Again, those are not easy things to do, but through attrition and thinking about that and some planning could happen. Educational aides, our benchmark for educational aides is 14.2 educational aides per 1,000 students. That includes special ed aides and general ed aides. I'll address the special ed aides here in a few moments. There was not a lot of changes in special ed. It primarily in educational aides had to do with general aid. Education aides, and the recommendation was to absorb 14 general education aid positions. 3 of those are those 3 clinic aides I talked about earlier. And when we get to the proposed staffing model for special ed, it includes actually adding 1 special ed aide, and we'll get to that here in a few minutes. And note that this model does keep an aide in each pre-K class to meet that low ratio. All righty, special ed staff. Consider addition of 1 special ed aide in the Resource Inclusion CM program. The recommended benchmarks that we have is 1 staff person for every 15 students in a Resource Inclusion or CM program. And the model for any of the other programs, life skills, autism, et cetera, those kinds are pretty much 1 to 4 besides behavior. So this model redirects 2 special ed aides and actually suggests moving 1 of those extra general ed aide positions over to special ed. All right, elementary teachers, we did break out bilingual classes and monolingual classes. And doing that and looking at trying to get to a 22-to-1 ratio at pre-K through 4 and a 25-to-1 ratio at grades 5 and 6 and aging students up and looking at a small decrease in enrollment, which is what the last 5 years has shown us in your district. And just upping those classes very close to 22-to-1, you could absorb 6 bilingual teacher positions and 3 monolingual teacher positions. And again, that's looking at aging students up to the next grade and looking at next year. Middle school, again, we look at sheer numbers. We looked at the master schedule, that 8-7 master schedule. I will compliment middle school and high school. They do have pretty efficient secondary master schedules, which I don't always see. There is always still some improvement in your master schedule, and whoever does create the master schedule really is driving your staffing at those grade levels. So the recommendation is really analyze the master schedule, see if you can up the average in those classes. Right now, the class average is 19 students. And if your district wants to stay with that and you can afford to do that, then of course you would do that. But if you're trying to be a little more efficient, we recommend that you move that average up to 23 students per class. And if so, you could absorb up to 6 middle school teachers. If you went up even to 24, you could absorb up to 7 teachers. Now that, of course, is going to take some work on master scheduling, seeing where you can do that for next year. Also, just a note about middle school, probably one of the few districts I've seen where middle school does not have the athletic periods during the school day. So you're being very efficient in that way also. High school teachers in a high school situation, considering absorbing up to 9 high school teachers through absorption. Again, the class sizes are much smaller than the recommended 22 to 25. At your high school, your class average is 17.8. If you could create a master schedule for next year and move up to 23.5, you could absorb up to 9 teachers. If you could move that up to 25-to-1, you could absorb up to 13 teachers. And I know as I say that, as a former high school principal, that's easier said than done. It does take work with the master schedule. Athletic periods, again, I'll just address high school because, I mean, since your middle school does not have the athletic periods. Here, the current coach to athlete ratio is 1 to 23.3. It's actually higher than your student to teacher ratio of 17.1. Typically, I'm recommending coaches teach more classes, but in this situation, to match that, you can either leave that there to try to stay with the 22 to 25, or actually convert 3 academic classes that your coaches teach to athletic periods in boys athletics and 2 in girls athletics, matching that academic class size. All right, maintenance staff, again, consider analyzing the procedures of the maintenance department in order to increase efficiencies. Your district operates a warehouse and it receives, stores, and delivers inventory to campuses and departments. Many districts have moved away from that and done that drop ship method where they're just ordering directly their supplies to, and they're shipped directly to the campuses. I know that's not always able to do with textbooks and those kinds of things, but with general supplies or whatever. I think what makes your district different in comparing maintenance departments with others is that you employ 5 warehouse staff, and that's not typical for your peer district averages. Your department shows 20.2 FTEs compared to 17.8 for the average of the peer districts, and they're staffed above the average of the peer districts at 6 positions per 1,000 students compared to the peer district average of 5.2. So a little higher there, but it's because of the warehouse workers. Custodial staff, you actually were staffed below the recommended benchmark. And here we would actually recommend considering adding 2 custodial staff. Our recommendation or benchmark that we use is that a custodian can clean about 19,000 cleanable square feet per day. So looking at equitableness amongst your campuses, some of your campuses, particularly at the middle school, and one at the support services is cleaning much more than that 19,000 and much more than the other custodians. Your average custodian cleans about almost 21,000 square feet per day. But it's not equitable across all campuses. So again, the recommendation would be adding 2 custodial staff, 1 at the middle school and 1 at the support services building and field house. Child nutrition services, it was difficult to evaluate since you have gone, I think, back to virtual instruction, although you had a blend. I'm not sure exactly where you're at right now, but I know at the time that I did this study, a large number of students, or maybe all the students, or almost all the students, were not at the campuses and were learning remotely. So the numbers as far as just analyzing it were below efficiencies at the elementaries. The secondary campuses were very efficient. So once students return, the recommendation is using the benchmarks that I've given under your meals per labor hour, if you so choose to use that benchmark, would be to evaluate your elementary campuses. And there's 2 ways to become more efficient. One is to have more participation in food services, more students are eating, or reduce your staff, and those are do both of those. So it will take a little bit more analyzing once students return. Transportation, again, consider analyzing transportation department for efficiencies. It's very difficult to compare transportation departments with other transportation departments because there's so many variables. Your district is very small. You have 13.4 square miles. The peer districts that we looked and compared you with range from 33 to 1,164 square miles. It doesn't mean that they should have more staff or not more staff. It depends on how many students ride the bus, how many special ed buses you have, what kind of traffic you have, and those kinds of things. So there's a lot of variables there. Technology, we would recommend considering creating a staffing ratio for your technology department based on the number of devices, users, and initiatives. And obviously in this a pandemic time when all students have devices, or most students have devices. Yeah, we know technology departments are strained and doing a lot. So just comparing, Joe, in spite of that, you employ 2.9 staff per 1,000 compared to peer district average of 1.9 staff per 1,000 students. So a little higher, but you have different initiatives going, and it's based on the initiatives of your district. Security. You do have a fairly large security department, and again, only your district can decide if that's necessary, but the recommendation is evaluating your security department for efficiencies. Your district employs 15 security guards compared to 0.3 for the average of the peer districts. But again, you may have different needs than other districts have. So processes and procedures, I did share with your district leadership team a sample district staffing matrix for campuses and departments, and then also a campus allocation sheet where you could decide on your ratios. So I compared you to all the benchmarks and ratios that we had chosen. Your district may say, we want to look at something different. So we might take that staffing matrix or those allocation sheets and decide what kind of ratios we want and base our staff on that. So they're templates that your district can use. So basically looking ahead, if you did implement every one of those recommendations that I suggested, which is probably not going to happen, you could see the savings that could occur for your district. Or if you went to the buffet and picked a couple of those, you could see the general amount of savings that your district could incur. So projections, of course, these are recommendations. Many districts look to implement some of the recommendations gradually through several years. Other districts pick and choose. You know, it's your district's choice on how you use this staffing review to the best of your ability of meeting your student needs. So recommendations, you know, of course, reduced by attrition. Master schedules at middle school and high school drive staffing at those two campuses and are huge. Gradual implementation, you know, communicating with your staff why you're making changes, and then utilize a district staffing plan are the recommendations. So that's all I have at this moment, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Not a question, but a compliment. Thank you for the report. It's very, very in-depth. I mean, that it sure looks like a lot of work. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I enjoyed getting to know your district very well.
Ms. Hoover, will you all share with the board the good news you have on their training that they'll able to receive?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Because of my presentation, and I did promise Blanca and Jeannie I would not take an hour, but because of my presentation, the board members and your superintendent can receive 1 hour of board training from TASB. So I sent Blanca a roster, and if you just she just fills that out and sends that back to me, our admin assistant will credit you here at TASB with 1 hour of board credit, and you have certificates. You can pass those certificates out also.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you're working with your district.
Thank you. So do you have any questions? Comments?
This is Mr. Chavez. I guess the only comment that I have was when are we going to look into this a little bit more in depth and make any decision as to what recommendations we're going to implement, if any, or what's the plan on doing with this report that was just presented to us?
Okay, that would be the next item, item 4C. 4C2, the discussion and possible board action to approve a date to hold special board meeting, which would be a workshop. And we would go more in depth into these questions and into these numbers. The dates that have been provided for us are Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020, Monday, December 7th, 2020, or Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Which days would work for you all?
Let me check my calendar. Hold on.
The one that
Yes,
works
ma'am.
best for me is December 8th.
I also
Looking at my calendar, that would work as
December
well.
December the 7th, I'm sorry.
So,
And there is
on this, you
a
have
specific time, Mrs. Nicole?
I'm sorry, what was that? It was Miss Hernandez has said December 8th. Ms. Romero, you said?
I said December 7th, but I was asking about the time frame.
We probably about 5:30 again to make it accessible for all board members to attend, being that some do have to work, Marielena.
Right, okay. I said December the 7th due to doctor's appointments around that.
Ms. Garcia?
I was waiting for Eddie and Fernie because they're the ones that work their schedule.
I can do either the 2nd or the 7th. I can't do the 8th because I have to work that day.
I can do the 7th as well.
Mr. Madrid?
I can only do the 2nd. If it's on the 7th or 8th, I won't be able to make it.
Yeah, the 2nd works for me too. So
2nd works for me too.
Ms. Hernandez?
I'm not sure about that date. I might not be able to, but let's go with the 2nd, and I'll let you know if I'm going to be able to attend.
Okay, Ms.
I'm
Romero?
in the same predicament. I have a doctor's appointment on the 2nd, so that's why I was going around the 2nd.
Okay. If we have it at 5:30, would that be more accessible for you, depending on
I
your doctor
probably would
appointment?
be able to. No, I'll work around it.
Yes.
So it'll
Okay.
be December the 2nd?
Yeah, December 2nd works for me as well. So could we be in agreement to have it Wednesday, December the 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
yes, Ms.
Okay.
Licon.
I don't believe we need a motion for this. I think we just had to schedule the time. Am I correct with this, Mrs. Demata?
I'm sorry, Board President, what was that?
On item 4C or
Yes.
C2, do we just need to schedule the date and time, or do we need an actual motion?
No, a motion is not needed. This way, if you need to change the date, you can do so without any board action.
Okay, perfect. So then we can go ahead and just for the record state, note that we will be having a special board meeting Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. to, again, discuss in further detail the TASB staffing report and to go into more detail on these items.
Thank you, Mrs. Licon. The administration will plan accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, and thank you for the preparation of the TASB report. Okay, we'll now proceed then to item 4D. Discussion and possible action to approve a method for convening future board meetings amid COVID-19 pandemic. Presenter will be the Board of Trustees. This is on page 136 of our board book. Okay. And I believe we do have a trustee that wanted to have this item on the agenda to discuss probably having more of an in-person board meeting. safety measures have been put in place. As you can see in the pictures from page 139 and 140, that we do have the dividers with those shields on each side. The seats have been separated, but I believe we can only have 10 people present for a board meeting, correct? And with that stated, we can also continue virtually for now. You know, the other option is to continue virtually as we have, and have those meetings due to how the increasing numbers that we're seeing with COVID. Again, this is something for us board members to discuss if we want to go back to in person or we want to remain virtual. And this is just also to give administration, you know, a heads up of what we're planning to do.
May I say something?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
The reason I asked for this is because I think that since the safety measures have already been put in place, the boardroom looks great. By the way, thank you for everyone who got it ready. I think that even though it's a scary, you know, time and everything, if our teachers are able to come back, we can go back to the boardroom. That's just my opinion. That's the reason why I had asked about this. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's just my personal opinion.
Anyone else?
No, I still go with virtual myself.
Ms. Licon, this is Trustee Garcia. I just want to say, and in reference to Ms. Becky Romero's comment, will the option be there for her to be there virtually if she so pleases? Is that okay?
I believe, Ms. Zamata, that we had discussed this, and I do believe that she can remain virtually. We would probably have some in person, and those, and again, please, Ms. Zamata, correct me if I'm wrong. Would she be able to remain, or whichever board member chooses to remain virtually? Could we have that type of a setting to where we could have in-person board members and virtual board members chiming in during this time?
So there's not an easy answer to that. Good evening, everyone. Priscilla Mata, District Council. When I looked into what the temporarily suspended laws of the Open Meetings Act do in this particular pandemic, is they allow you to meet virtually just as you've been doing. Once you go back to in-person meetings, what that means is now you're operating, and you have to operate and comply with full spirit of the Open Meetings Act, all the laws, all the technical rules. So as to whether any one of you can continue to participate virtually, the answer is yes, but we're going to have to make sure that the technology is now up to standard under the Open Meetings Act. Right now, because of the pandemic, you're allowed to meet virtually, but you don't necessarily have to meet all the technical requirements. It's not as easy as conducting a WebEx, for example. The other thing that I'll note is, and I'm happy to work with Horacio on that end, but the other thing that I will note is that if you go back to in-person meetings, there's a chance that you may have to open up your boardroom doors for public comment. Now, that's going to be a problem, especially given the situation that El Paso County is in at the moment. So that may be problematic. Arguably, you can keep those doors closed and continue operating your meetings as you have, with regard to public comments, meaning that the public keeps calling in. They'll also appear virtually, along with any of the trustees that wish to do so. But it is challengeable, in all honesty. So I think that the best route is to either go to full in-person meetings or continue virtually. I'm happy to explore the options if there's any one of you who wish to continue virtually so that we meet all the technical requirements of the Open Meetings Act. Because again, if you go back to in-person meetings, now we have to operate and comply with the full Open Meetings Act laws.
President Licon, and I would just, again, echo what Ms. Hernandez said in terms of the great work. I'd like to thank Mr. Martinez and the staff for getting the boardroom ready. But so you're aware, the administration is prepared to go with whatever decision you all decide. However, for cabinet members, I would still keep them presenting from their office because we obviously don't want to go past the 10-person. And again, those are things that we allow for our teachers. They're all employees right now are only reporting, most employees are reporting twice a week, with the exception of the needs of students in particular areas.
Okay. Anybody else would like to?
Ms. Licon, would it be okay to allow Ms. De Mata to do a little bit more research before we go into making a decision and table it for next time?
We can definitely do that so we can get more information. For now, we can go ahead and table this item for further research, and we can bring it up at next board meeting or whenever she has the information for us, then we can bring it back.
So with that being said, Ms. De Mata, can I make a motion to table the item 4D?
Absolutely. And I would be happy to get more information for you all in the meantime. But yes, the motion would be appropriate for tabling.
Okay, I motion to table item 4D, and I think Ms. Romero seconded.
Correct.
Okay, so let me just go back to my tables over here. So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Garcia, seconded by Ms. Romero to table item 4D. For more information from Mrs. De Mata. Mr. Madrid, how do you vote?
No.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No.
No, okay. Not to table. Mr. Chavez?
Well, I'm having trouble with my button. I mean, I guess I ran out of time to discuss it, but yeah, I'll go with I. It's all fine.
Yes. Okay. Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Okay. Mrs. Hernandez?
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Okay. And Mrs. Licon, aye. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 2 nays. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry. 4 ayes and 2 nays. Motion carries to table the item. So item is tabled for now. Thank you all. Okay. We'll now proceed to item 5. Consent agenda. Consider impossible action on board items 5A through H2. Are there any items you'd like to pull out for discussion or have any questions on?
No.
No? Okay, if not,
No.
please have a motion.
I so move.
Okay.
I second.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda items 5A through H2 by Ms. Garcia, seconded by Ms. Hernandez. Mr. Madrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
And Mrs. Licon, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, reports, information, and presentation. Item 6A through 6C, they're all for information. Are there any items you'd like to have a question on or have any concerns you'd like to pull up for further discussion? Okay. I just want to make sure I hear everyone. My computer keeps freezing. So,
Yeah, mine's been freezing as well.
Okay, so if, and I don't want to miss anyone. So if we don't have any further questions or anything on these reports, we can now proceed to item 7, the executive session. The board will enter into a closed meeting to discuss personnel matters, to consult with attorney, to discuss real estate matters, to consider recommendations for hiring of personnel or termination of personnel and other personnel matters under section 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. Item 7A, discussion on employee board superintendent communication. 7B, discussion regarding revisions and updates to the board operating procedures to include social media guidelines for board members and board self-evaluation. 7C, discussion with legal counsel regarding extracurricular activities on campus instruction in light of current TEA guidance, local county judge order number 13, and press release from the city of San Elizario. 7D, discussion regarding addressing future principal vacancy at Zambrano Elementary School and possible reassignment of personnel to serve an interim principal at Loya Primary School at 7:27 p.m. So we will now go into executive session. If we can please mute and stop our videos and go into executive session. It is 8:44 p.m. The board will return from executive session to open session to take possible action on the matters discussed in executive session. Item 8A, discussion and possible action to approve revisions and updates to the board operating procedures to include social media guidelines for board members and board self-evaluation. Is there any discussion? The floor is open for any discussion. If we don't have any discussion, may I have a motion?
I move to approve item 8A.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, a motion on the floor to accept item 8A by Mrs. Hernandez, a second by Ms. Romero. Mr. Madrid, how do you vote? Mr. Madrid?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Licon? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Motion carries. Okay. Proceeding to item 8B, discussion and possible action regarding SEISD's response to City of San Elizario in connection with its press release dated November 2nd, 2020. Any discussion on that one?
I so move.
Okay, so may we have a motion to direct administration to proceed as discussed in executive session?
I so move.
Okay, motion by Ms. Garcia. Mrs. Garcia, second.
I second.
Okay, seconded by Mrs. Hernandez. Okay, Mr. Madrid?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Licon? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Motion carries. Okay. Item 8C, discussion and possible action to approve reassignment personnel to serve as interim principal of Loya Primary School, along with discussion and possible action to approve additional job responsibilities and compensation in light of budget constraints. Any discussion?
I move to table the item.
I second.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mrs. Garcia to table the item 8C. A second by, who seconded?
Ms. Romero.
Ms. Romero.
Ms. Romero? Okay. Thank you. So, second by Mrs. Romero. Mr. Madrid, how do you vote? Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Licon? Aye. Motion carries as well unanimously. Item 9, next meeting dates. We will have a special meeting on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. and a regular board meeting Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. We will now move to item 10. May we have a motion to adjourn at 8:48 p.m.
I move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:48 p.m.
Okay, a second.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Romero, seconded by Ms. Hernandez to adjourn at 8:48 p.m. Mr. Madrid?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Licon? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Orozco.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Again, it's wonderful to
Thank
see
you.
you all. Please be safe and stay healthy.
Everyone.
Thank
You
you,
too.
everyone.
Horacio,
Bye.
thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.